We are going to get started in just a couple minutes as folks join in, but welcome to today's webinar on unraveling social channels. Hello again to everyone joining. We're going to get started in just a couple minutes. Let people come on in, get themselves situated. And as folks are starting to join now, today's topic again is on unraveling social channels. Just a quick little overview as everyone joins in. We'll get started on the full presentation in just a couple minutes. Today's agenda, we have about 20 minutes for issue insights, where we'll be sharing unraveling social channels, 10 minutes or so for a product demo related to today's topic. And lastly, we will have an open Q&A where we will answer questions. So a couple notes, housekeeping notes as folks join today. All participants today will be muted throughout the duration of the presentation to ensure best audio quality for everyone. If you have any questions anytime during the webinar, you can click on the Q&A button to do so. Please submit any questions you have in the Q&A section. This just helps us filter them and read them back later as well to better answer questions in the future. And lastly, we are recording today's webinar and we will share the link to the video in our follow-up. This way you can listen to it again and share it with others who may be interested. Let's see. So we will just give it one more minute or so as folks join on. Michelle, I'm seeing in the chat someone's hearing words twice. Could you just confirm if our audio is all right for everyone? All right. Thank you, guys. So I think we can start getting started. Sorry if anyone's having audio troubles on their end, but as a quick introduction, my name is Megan Cole, and I am a product marketing manager here at Issue. So I have been at Issue for 3 years now, and I have worked really closely with both of the product and marketing sides of Issue. I'm really passionate, especially about how we can use the Issue product to better integrate with different businesses, marketers, content creators, and how you can use that with kind of the marketing knowledge and advertising knowledge that I have to really enhance your brand and its presence. So super excited to be sharing insights today, especially on social media channels and the topic of social channels. This is a newer presentation that we're doing, so I really hope that it has a lot of value for everyone joining today. So one thing that I always love to do when we get started is just launch quick polls to get an understanding of who is joining today. So my first question for everyone is getting an understanding of what level marketer you would consider yourself, whether you're beginner, intermediate, advanced, or not a marketer. If you're a beginner or not a marketer, don't worry. These are really meant to be super easy and accessible webinars that hopefully you can apply some of the skill sets from to any roles that you may have. So today's webinar, just getting an idea of who is joining today just really helps me understand what level of detail I should go into or what items you might already know. And that just helps me kind of tailor today's session. So we'll just give that a couple more seconds for folks to answer. And then we have one more question that I would love to have answered today before we jump into the full presentation. So I'm going to end this poll and open the second poll. Would love to know the reasons that you are attending today. So we have a few options on why you've joined us today. You can choose all that apply. It's a multiple choice. If you want to learn tips and tricks for using Issue, you want to learn more about how to use social channels for your brand, or if you want to learn about how to determine which channels you should use for your brand, all of the above, or none of the above. If you have any other suggestions or any other topics that you'd like to learn more about, feel free to add them in the Q&A section. This way we can collect those and have those considered for future webinar topics as well. I'll be covering all of these topics today, of course, but this really gets me a good idea of where the interest level is across today's topics. So we'll give that just a little bit more time. And as folks are answering today's poll topic, would love to just give a little bit more insight into Issue, who we are, and what our goals are here. So Issue helps people transform static designs into high performance content for every digital marketing channel. So it's a really great tool for any content creators, marketers, or brands to really optimize their content for those digital experiences. And the way we do this, or the way we really simplify the process, is a 3-step process of being able to publish your content to Issue, whether it is a PDF, a Word document, PowerPoint, or a bunch of other digital files. You can really easily publish those to Issue, which then converts it into an easy to read and share flip book version of your content, especially great for desktop experiences. Once your content has been published, you can then share it anywhere across multiple different channels. You can really repurpose the content that you've uploaded and share it across all of your different channels, including your social channels that I'll be covering today. And lastly, the ability to measure the impact of what you're sharing and publishing on Issue. So with the Issue statistics tool, we give some breakdowns of the demographics and impressions and more content from your statistics. So in today's webinar, I'm really going to be focusing on that ability to share and where you are sharing it and what considerations you might have for sharing of your content. So let me just end this poll. Thank you guys again for answering today's poll. Just giving it a quick look over. So we can jump right into the Issue insights today. So unraveling social channels and really getting an understanding of what that means. So when we think about social channel strategies, today we're going to focus on how you can post content on your own channels to grow your brand organically. So there are two sides to social channel strategies and social media, whether you are creating organic content, which is the content that you're posting yourself and posting on your channel, versus your paid content where you are creating that content and then adding like sponsored or adding money to kind of run it, for example, Facebook ads or different ads. Today, we're going to really focus on just considering your social channel strategy as a whole and where you might want to place your brand organically. So there are so many different channels across the internet, and it's really easy to get overwhelmed with the number of them. But it's also really important to remember not every social channel is for every person, brand, or content creator or content type. So each one has different content based on the demographics and really understanding the best one for you. With that, the first thing we should consider is understanding your primary versus your secondary channels on social. So when we think about the primary versus secondary channels, we're thinking about where you're putting most of your focus and where are you making room for more experimentation. So for your primary channels, this is where you're going to invest more of your time and your focus to craft your storytelling. And these are some of the common primary social channels. So I'm just going to kind of go over a quick description of each one and when you might be using them or what you might consider for your audience or getting an understanding of which channels, when and where you should be posting on those channels as well. So of course, we have kind of the big three of Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Those are probably some of the most popular social channels, but they all have really different purposes and intents as well. So when you are thinking about Twitter, it's really about creating short, sweet, and to the point content and thinking about that character limit that you have. Um, Typically around 130 to 240 characters is that sweet spot for your Twitter content. And when you're thinking about it, it's also considering it as almost crafting headlines for a blog. So short content that's really engaging that folks will read and quickly share, like, or retweet. A great way to utilize Twitter is to consider any of the trending hashtags or topics to start a hyper relevant conversation in real time, or thinking about like seasonality, TV shows, and how you can kind of line your brand up with any of those trending topics. When you're thinking about Twitter in particular, it's a great way to also share links out to that longer content and craft a kind of short, sweet headline to then entice the users to go over to that longer form content. Um, Looking over at Facebook in comparison to Twitter, Facebook really started as a space for friends to connect and share content online and have conversations. So the nature of Facebook is also very conversational, but can be longer form content or longer copy compared to Twitter. So it's really great to share opinions and grow brand affinity, and treating this as more of a consumer facing channel. So you are doing that B2C, so business to consumer interactions with your Facebook channels. Facebook is really great as well because you have so many different reactions and comments capabilities. You can get a good pulse on how your audience is reacting to the content that you're posting, and getting those conversations a little bit more organically on Facebook is really great as well. Next is Instagram, which is, I would say, an ever-changing application. They are really keeping up with different trends across all the different digital channels as well. So where it started as just a simple photo sharing app, Instagram is really strong in their visual channel assets. So it's a great way to share more polished short form content. The Instagram for Business in particular lets you do a lot of different features, including opening up shops, sharing videos with the Instagram TV, or posting stories, which they're probably most popular uh, and most well known for is posting those those vertical video versions of stories that last for about 24 hours or so that you can share on your Instagram channels. So we can definitely go entirely on a topic for any of these channels as well. But today, this is just a quick overview of all of the channels that you can consider for your primary purposes. So the next one is LinkedIn. So where Facebook is really a space for friends to connect and share online, LinkedIn is really more business oriented social networking service, especially for those professional services. So it's much more commonly used for B2B services, or providing resources for professionals or other businesses and consumers. So it's a great way to share any resources or insights that you might have. And that might not be the best fit for every brand, but it's a great way to really grow your brand out or your own persona out using LinkedIn. And lastly, on this list of primary social channels, we have YouTube, which I'm sure everyone knows of. Video sharing website. YouTube is really great to be used as a repository for video content of varying lengths and intent. So the way that we at Issue use YouTube, for example, is we have all of our webinars hosted on YouTube, any of our webinar recordings from the past. We also have the shorter form tutorial videos, and we have some like interviews with customers. We really use our YouTube channel in a bunch of different ways and optimize our YouTube channel for all those different types of content. So YouTube is really great because you can have a wide variety of content and intent, and you can share that out really easily with your channel. So that is a lot to consider when you're thinking about all of your different primary social channels. So we have 5 quick questions to ask yourself when you're choosing which channel you want to really invest more of your time on. Getting an understanding of each of these channels, always consider, where your target buyer is, where they're spending their time, where your competition is. So, what channels are they using? Are there any untapped opportunities with the content that you have that could fit really nicely with these different channels? How many channels can you consistently do well? And this one is really important. And I'm sure I'm going to bring this up over and over again. Social channels, whether they're primary or secondary, it's always important to consider the big picture of your goals. Um, if you can't do all of the channels well consistently right now, that's fine. Like you can just focus in on one, or you can focus in on other aspects of your business and brand. So it's always important to just consider how you're balancing these channels and the level of effort you're putting into them versus the other channels that you're working on or the other work that you're doing. And lastly, if there are any geographic differences to take into consideration. So, thinking about all the different channels, what your competitors are using, and where your audience is located on the earth can also influence which channels you are using. So that's quick overview of primary channels. Now we're going to go into some of those secondary channels and how to integrate those into your strategy. So with secondary channels, we're really thinking more about experimentation and testing out different types of content. Your primary channels or the channels that I listed earlier could even go into a secondary category depending on your own needs. But the best practices for this experimentation is really looking at the 80-20 strategy. So 80% of your focus, time, and budget should be spent on maintaining and growing your primary channels, while the other 20% can go into your secondary channels in search of possible opportunities for growth. So if we think about these questions that you're asking yourself for choosing your primary social channels, if the answer is no for any of these, maybe it could move into your secondary channel considerations and where you want to try experimentation. So, another important thing to remember is if your channels in that experimentation space don't end up working out for you, it isn't a failure. It's just a test that you found the results to. So you can always continuously move and try something else for that 20% of your time. So, looking at some of the newer secondary channels, as I mentioned before, we have you have your primary and secondary, and maybe YouTube is a secondary channel for you. But if we're thinking about some of those newer channels, these are probably the ones that folks have most questions about in terms of secondary social channel opportunities, starting with TikTok. Just getting an understanding of the overall audience on TikTok as a really growing app and brand. A lot of their users are between the ages of 16 to 24. So you're talking about a much younger audience in comparison to something like Facebook or LinkedIn. So you can always really consider how you are crafting your content for TikTok. Some things you can do always is researching accounts from brands that are similar to yours to see how they approached it. A really big thing with TikTok in particular is authenticity and thinking about that like Gen Z culture for growing that brand affinity. So a lot of brands on TikTok aren't doing super polished content that you might see on Instagram, for example, or on the other social channels where you're doing paid media buys. A lot of TikTok is growing that brand affinity and getting folks to really like the brand and what it stands for from a bit more of an unpolished and real person perspective. Um, Another channel that is growing in popularity and could be a really great opportunity for you is Clubhouse, which is a live streaming audio only platform, almost like a live stream of a podcast where your audience can also interact and ask questions to create a conversation. So it's a good way to highlight any thought leadership you might have and generate a close relationship with your audience. Clubhouse is still really a very new app, and folks are figuring out all the ins and outs of how to use it. But there are a lot of different categories and topics that are covered in all of the different Clubhouse groups. One thing to note with Clubhouse is it's pretty invite only and exclusive, which is kind of nice because you have a very targeted group of people who are really interested in your content and your conversations that you're bringing forward. And lastly, on this list of secondary channels, we have Twitch, which is a video live streaming service that's typically associated with video game streams. So Twitch is a little bit weird, and I would describe it as one of the outliers in comparison to some of these other channels because it's mostly associated with streaming or live streaming video games or like art processes. But brands or individuals will sometimes use this as an opportunity to build out an audience to add really specific relatability and personality to their content. So a good example of this is AOC using it while campaigning for the election in order to play video games with some popular video game streamers, and just like seeing her reactions to playing the games really made it humanizing and really popular for that younger audience. So Twitch is kind of a weird channel, but there are some really fun ways you can think about it and utilize it in your own flows. Definitely 20% time though. I am starting to lose my voice, so 1 second. So we have 5 more questions to update your current strategy. When we're thinking about both your primary and secondary strategies, there are a lot of questions and considerations to ask yourself while you are going through these processes. So really getting an understanding if your primary goals are, or your primary channels are vital to hitting your primary goals, or if they are just kind of supplementary to hitting your primary goals. That's a really important question to consider in the grand scope of everything. So if we think about that 80-20 time again for social channels, we can also take it a step back to all of the channels in your MarTech stack and understanding like where this fits in, whether it goes into your 80% time for all of the things that you're managing or the 20% time of experimentation specifically with your social channels. Other things to consider are how you'll grow your reach and audience on the channels, which channels you should keep on the radar to grow next. So which ones are you curious about if you don't have time to invest in it right now? Which ones might you want to do later down the line? What features in the products would you want to employ regularly to make sure you're maximizing impact? For example, with Instagram, if you want to always be sure to add links or create video content versus not always using Instagram TV for maximizing your impact. Those are the type of considerations you might have for each app. And lastly, making sure you have an understanding of how you can measure and ensure that you're reaching the right audience and you have the tools in place to get those like demographic and statistic results in. So those are the questions to update your current strategies as well. So there are a couple ways that you can couple ways you can enhance your social presence with Issuu. We really like to provide tools that can help with any of the considerations that we shared today. So first way is really the ability to repurpose your Issuu content for social channels, especially considering that mobile audience. You can create different versions of your Issuu content or ways to promote your Issuu content using the Issuu article stories or our GIF maker to create shareable assets that can be posted on channels such as Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And then more specifically, looking into the ways that you can repurpose your content is also creating visual stories for your social channels, which create that vertical video content, especially for any channels that have stories platforms. So you can convert the versions of your content into visual stories that can then be shared on social channels such as Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, and other channels. So I today am going to be covering in today's demo how you can do just this. So let's jump into the demo. So here on my Issuu account, I am going to quickly show you how you can, of course, upload your content. So here on the left-hand side, I just click on the upload button and I can upload any files that I want, whether it is from my device or from my Dropbox or Google Drive accounts. Any digital content that I have, I can really easily upload this to Issue, add any other descriptions, so on and so forth. And once it is published, I'm going to go over to my publications and show you what this looks like. So in this example, we have our publication, and we want to create different versions or derivatives of that content. So the first thing I'll show you is how you can create a GIF asset over here. All you have to do is go to the left-hand side and click on Create GIF. Oops. Sorry, 1 second. Realize I'm in my drafts and not my published. So here we are in my publication. I'll go over to Create GIF. And we can create a square format animated GIF that's really great for sharing on different social channels. With these spreads, I can make a quick preview of my content that I've already uploaded, and it will look like this. Other things I can do is also change the background color or adjust the background colors with any hex codes that I have. And this is a great, really quick asset to then use for all of your different social channels. So here, for example, I'm going to download this source file and click download, and then I can download it as an MP4 video, which is perfect for your social media, or I can download it as a GIF file. So I'll click download video, and it will process, create a video version. And once that version is ready, all you have to do is right click and save the video. So here I'll go, I opened it, right click, and then I save the video as whatever file description you want. So when you are downloading this, you'll download it as an MP4 for your social channels, such as Facebook and Instagram in particular, but you can also save it as GIF. So here I'll click on download as a GIF file instead. And this is really great because not only can you use it on channels such as Twitter or other channels where you might want to add a GIF keyboard, you can also, here I'll right click, save image as, and it'll save as a GIF. But you can also add those GIF files directly into any emails that you have. So we have a beta tool specifically to send that GIF file into MailChimp currently, but we have more integrations coming as well. But I can really easily export that to MailChimp and then use it for my MailChimp campaigns. I won't go too deep into that today, but that's just another great way that you can export your content and move it into your MailChimp content studio. So once I have created this file, if I want to have any extra content to then share my share to go alongside this image asset, I can go over into my publication and get the share link. So here at the top right, you can get your publication link, which will send you to the full publication, or I can share it directly to any of the different social channels. If you are a paid user, you can also use the full screen sharing link, which looks a little different from the classic issue link. So I'll just quickly show the difference between the two. So the full screen sharing link looks like its own web page dedicated to your long form content, whereas the quick link, depending on your plan, also there are some differences. Your quick link will look like it is on Issue's website compared to that full screen sharing. So the full screen sharing link is our one of our premium features, whereas everyone on basic accounts and up can also just share a classic issue link as well. So once your content is ready, you can really pair that GIF with any links that you want. But another thing that you can do, especially for mobile reading, is create article stories from your content. So here I've already made an example of that article story. And let's just go in and create another version of it so you can see what that looks like and what this process looks like. So to start, I'm just going to click on whichever pages I want to include into my post. So maybe let's choose a bunch of them today. And what the article stories tool does is automatically create a scrolling version. So here on the left-hand side, we have the original pages of your content where the copy might be a little hard to read, especially on mobile devices where a lot of your social media channels or your social media audience is consuming their content. So what we've done is converted all of that content into plain text and created a endless scrolling look and feel that's a lot easier on the eyes for mobile reading. So here I'll go over to the preview just to show what this article looks like. So as you can see, we automatically convert that content and it should be really easy to read. You can also, of course, make any edits that you want in the editor, such as removing any images you don't want to add or changing the text. So here we converted this into a subtitle, but I can also make it into a regular paragraph style, or I can add any hierarchy to my text editing as well. It's really easy. All you have to do is basically hover over and click to make any changes you want. And once it's ready and good to go, you can save it and then publish it. So with your article stories, you can share those on social channels as well, or you can copy this link. And instead of sharing the full publication, what we're now doing is sharing this mobile optimized and kind of article version of that content. So it all links back to my original example. So you can always read that, the full publication here, but you can also have a quick jump to your content or share it as its own specific link for any of your different posts or scheduling purposes. So for example, if I want to share just about what a minimally viable campaign is on my Twitter channel, instead of sharing the full publication out, maybe I want to create different articles and just split my content into different content pieces. So it's a bit easier and more digestible and a lot easier to track on where users are reading all of the different content types. So that is the article stories that can also really be nicely paired with the GIF tool. The last feature that I'll show is our, let's go back into my example. So the last feature I'll show is our visual stories feature, which is how you can create vertical video content, kind of slideshow look and feel from the content that you have uploaded to issue. So again, over on the left-hand side, I'm going to go over to visual stories here, and I'm going to get started. Similar to article stories, I can choose whichever pages I want from my original document, and then I'll go and create visual story. So we essentially pull all of the assets the same way that we have with our article stories tool. We have a few different style templates with more to come, where you can choose different look and feels. My personal favorite is the engage style because it gives you a lot more kind of freedom to change the assets around. So within the document now, we have pulled all of the images from the PDF that you uploaded or from your document that you uploaded to issue. And all you have to do is click and drag, as well as change the text to whatever you want it to be. To note, this is just my profile logo. So whatever your logo is, or whatever your icon is for your issue account is going to be the one that is imported here, but you can also change it out with any other images. I can also add more assets by going over to the upload more images option as well. So just going to do this one super quickly to be mindful of the time today. But I can really easily add any other assets. We also pull all of the different text from your content as well, so you can easily copy and paste that content out. And once it is done into your liking, you will have a vertical video preview that you can then use. And once you click create story, you can save these assets again as an MP4 video to share across your different social channels. So these assets are available not only on your desktop, but also in the issue app for easy sharing on social channels on mobile. I'll also just quickly show text. I can't type, you can really quickly and in real time change that text out and make any other edits that you want. Also a bit of freedom in terms of moving some text around or changing the font to different font styles. We have a few different font styles available that can really let you change your content's look and feel. So once that is all done, all you do is click create story. Once it's reviewed, click share, and you can share your content out as well. This usually takes a little while I am streaming from webinars, but that is the visual stories tool, and you can get all of the assets from your stories and your article stories as well in the left-hand side of your publisher home space. And you can find all of the assets that you've created in the past, both in your article stories and your visual stories for easy sharing. So once that content is ready, you can click on the share buttons here and really easily access any of those links. And of course, my computer does not want the share button to work. There it is. So once you have any of those assets, it's really easy to copy and share those assets out or share them directly on your different social channels as well. And that concludes today's demo. Before we get into the Q&A portion of today's webinar, we do have one last poll just to get an understanding of the interest. So if you're interested in free workshops on how Issuu can help transform your content, that goes much more in depth compared to today's webinars, please just click yes and we'll follow up with you. We have the Issuu Academy, which is hosted by our customer success teams. These are weekly workshops that help users go over every step of the way in terms of getting started, preparing your content for upload. Wednesdays is mobile optimization, which really goes into the article and visual stories in particular. And then Thursdays are statistics and integrations. So these workshops are also much more hands-on compared to these webinars where we're trying to share a bit more kind of overall insights and sharing, where the Issuu Academy is really focused specifically on getting accustomed to Issuu product and how you can use it for some of the cases that we shared today. So if you're interested or if you have any more specific nitty-gritty questions, I really encourage folks to join the Issuu Academy in order to get some of that great one-on-one time, especially with our CS folks. So as folks answer that, we'll also jump into today's Q&A. And Michelle, if there are any questions that you saw.
Yeah, I have one here. What is the main purpose for using hashtags in your opinion?
Yeah, and Michelle, feel free to chime in if you have any other thoughts. Michelle is also on the marketing team here at Issuu and has taught me many a thing about social. So I would say that one of the main purposes of using hashtags is especially for finding relevant or tagging your content for that relevant use case. It's much more popular on channels such as Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok in particular, because it's a way to categorize your content or to show up from an algorithm standpoint. So if you're doing topical content about a specific show, TV show, for example, they'll give you a hashtag. Another way that you can use it is also to track results of your own campaigns with hashtags. Did I get it right, Michelle?
You did. Very good. Next question is, all these features, are they only with a paid account or with a free account?
Yes. So when the features that were covered today are actually all on free accounts, aside from the full screen sharing feature. So when you upload your content and you want to create derivatives of your assets, you can create article stories as well as the GIF and visual stories. These are all free features that you can use. when you're sharing these links out, the only item that is specifically a paid feature that I covered today is this full screen sharing feature, which is again that kind of custom web page that is entirely your publication. Um, when we are going into any paid features as well, if you're playing around in the product, you can also see paid features are specifically indicated by these little green stars. So if there are any features that you want to try to use and you see that you can't, it's probably a green starred item.
Next question, thanks, Megan, is I've noticed that you didn't mention Pinterest. Is this because it's outdated or not suitable?
Yeah, Pinterest is really interesting because I almost don't consider it a social media channel as much as it is a visual search tool. So it really depends. Your mileage may vary when it comes to your Pinterest content or sharing Pinterest content out. If we think about Pinterest, it's a lot more users who are looking for inspiration or trying to find something really specific, especially within that like lifestyle brand side of things. And it's much more like doing a Google search. So there are a lot of different strategies for Pinterest in comparison to those social channels when it comes to your content. So instead of thinking about it as like a voice that you're posting your content to, Pinterest is very visual and is a bit more kind of playing with search algorithms. So we didn't cover it today, but that's definitely something that's super interesting and that I can dive into in a future webinar.
All right, and I think we're running out of time. I know we didn't get to all the questions. We will definitely follow up with folks. But is it possible to edit content after publishing on issue?
Yep. So depends on which types of content. If you are editing if you're talking about the content that you've uploaded, you would have to edit it and then go into the re-upload button here to replace the content with a new file. So if you uploaded your content and say you have a typo or something, you can always, oh, look, Michelle, it's you. You can always make any changes afterwards and then re-upload the content. When you re-upload the content, it will preserve all of your previous links though. So it's a really easy change. When it comes to editing your article stories or your visual stories, yeah, you can edit those without having to re-upload.
There we go. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you everyone for joining, and we will for sure be going over all of the Q&As and might have a part 2 on unraveling social channels. There's always so much to talk about when it comes to social. So thank you all for joining today and hope to see you again soon.